Hey guys, today I'm showing off my build of the USS Reliant 1/1000 scale. I built this right after the NX-01 model, and I built it probably over about a course of a month, on and off. I worked a whole lot in between, so it was kind of every other day. I actually had this model as the second project I was working on. In fact, I think at the end of the Enterprise refit model, I had teased I was going to do this model. I had indeed started it, but I wasn't happy with how it was going. When I built the Enterprise refit, once all the decals were on, I had pre-drilled the windows in the engineering hull and the neck, and a few places on the saucer, but they didn't have any any windows molded on the saucer rim. On Reliant, there is no windows molded on this at all. So when I first started building this, I saw what happened with Enterprise. I think I mentioned it multiple times. When I tried to draw out the decals for the windows, I didn't score them and they just slipped and they looked mismatched everywhere. So since then, when I tried doing Reliant, it was thinking about that. Paint details that just wasn't coming out, and I wasn't anywhere close to as experienced as I was now. I hadn't even started doing my own lights yet. So I abandoned that project, and since I have pretty much completed all other 1/1000 scale Federation ships, I figured I'd go back to Reliant and give it the good old treatment I've been giving all the other models. So like the Enterprise A, like the NX-01, it is equipped with a TenaControls board for the windows, and for a few other details, I once again got Photoetch details. And as mentioned before, I had the second half of the Enterprise refit / Reliant Aztec decals, so I managed to deck it all out with those decals, regardless if it wasn't a set. I would have found some Aztec decals anyway, because these ships, this era of ships, just every one of them are aesthetically awesome. Like between the Aztecs, between the design of the cells, this whole motion picture era of ships are my favorite era of ships, next to the TNG era with the Galaxy class Enterprise. So with that, in terms of building this model, of course, because it has a control board and it naturally has all the navigation and strobes done throughout the model, including the one in the roll bar. That part scared me the most because I had to keep this part separated as I was doing all the decals and the painting and stuff, because once those parts were attached, I really, couldn't feasibly be able to work on, all the decals and the painting and stuff. So I kept that apart. It's just got a single strobe on top. I didn't do the photon tubes because right now I'm more or less wanting the ships just to appear as they are, flying in space. I don't want them in combat or aggressive or anything like that. That's just my choice. So it's just gonna have a single strobe on there. Got a couple wires leading down here, and all this was off with the phaser cannons off for most of the entire time. So building this was interesting, as normally once I get all the electronics in and assemble the model fully, very few things like the Photoetch will stay off, as it gets the initial base coats and the detail paintings. But largely once I start working on the decals, the whole model is put together. It was not so much in this case. So building the roll bar was interesting. Getting a light in there. Usually I use the smallest pre-resistor LEDs I have, 1.8 millimeter. However, when I try to do it, give it my usual wire thinning treatment by swapping out the wires with thinner gauge wires and then putting the LED in there, I realized how small that space was. As soon as I started cramming it in there, it just broke altogether. So I had to go back to using the dreaded 0603 LED with the resistor. So obviously I couldn't fit the resistor in here, as I wired through there I kept the wires out, but I made sure that the other end had a resistor on it, so I made sure that this thing will always run, you know, at the minimum of 9 volts. It can run 12 volts with the resistor. The only one I can't do that with is Excelsior, because I mistakenly put a 9 volt resistor on it. That one will only work at 9 volts. But all my projects will always be running at least at 9 volts. So enough of my rambling. I think you've seen this ship swimming in long enough. I'll go ahead and switch to showing lights and showing what I've done with this thing. All right, and here we have the model in her let it glory, as I always say. Immediately you'll notice a slight problem. You're gonna see 2 navigation lights that are not lighting here and here on the top. Unfortunately, my current conjecture is that as I was assembling the model, having it clamped here, I was having some difficulties just keeping the model cemented. You know, any modeler knows if there's paint that's still on the seam here and you're using like that, I'm using the Tamiya extra thin cement to seal it all up. The way those cements work is that it's supposed to melt the plastic together, and usually if paint's in the way, it won't adhere. So as I was liberally putting on that cement all throughout the rim, my suspicion was the fiber optic just kind of dissolved here and stopped bringing out the lights. So unfortunately, the top port and starboard navigation flashes are not working, but thankfully all the other ones are working and I got all the other lights to work. I'll go ahead and just turn off the lights for the moment just so you can see what I've done with the thing. So on the back here, you'll see the navigation strobes that do survive a little bit more. Because of the Photoetch details, I got the shuttle base here all glowing and stuff. It's the supply with a blue decal, so I don't know how well the camera can pick it up. I think it's mostly washed out, yeah. So those are glowing. All the windows, of course, the flashers down here, the warp nacelles. As I'm doing more the Reliant version, I know certain CG models have this part here as a glowing element. I decided to do the movie variant and just keep it as a flasher and painted this clear parts gold. And then of course I did the warp nacelles. For me, I'm not sure if what happened afterwards. The camera could probably pick up the light spots, or sorry, the hot spots from the LED strip, but this LED strips kind of sank a little bit, so they're not quite line up with the center of the warp nacelle. This one looks a little bit better. Yeah, actually looks a lot bit better. Something happened with just this one. So overall, I'm happy with the model, just overall how it came out, because, you know, obviously with the windows and stuff and the spotlights, it's a good looking ship. It's a good looking counterparts to the Enterprise refit. You know, right before they start duking it out. Photoetch details had me carve that out because there was no window there, so I got an officer's lounge there. So in the dark, overall, it illuminates quite well, similar to the Enterprise A. I got spotlights here, but none of them are really downward facing, so it's not really going to provide illumination for the front registry. But overall, still looking good in the dark. Still looking good. Put this back down. I'm going to turn the light back on. So overall, like I said, constructing the roll bar was fine. The windows, the light arrangement for the windows here, I beefed up the LED strips a lot to make sure it amplified, but similar with the Enterprise refit and Enterprise A decals, if you don't drill through the windows, especially with these ones here, these windows are really, really dark, so unless it's a really dark situation with the lights, some of those lights are not going to peek through. Which, if you're wanting lights to not be on, it looks like it's, actually a ship and not, just a studio model which has every single light lit up all the time, then that works for you. So aside from the mistakes of the strobes here, I think I largely got all the painting details. I still, I think the instructions called for the ends to be a little, the same, kind of the same blue I mixed up here, but I think I have to go back to the reference photos. The reference photos had these probably closer to what the Enterprise refit looked like, and if they didn't, I would still justify it to say that I would want these to match kind of what the aesthetic of what these nacelles look like. Since this is technically the third set of these nacelles I've worked on, I'm just keeping them more or less consistent in my own little headcanon. So aside from that and my usual continuing rambling, I think that's it. I will do what I usually do. I'll post probably throughout the video pictures of what I did with the model, and of course beauty shots of this next to all the other models I've done. This is now my 7th lighted model. In terms of what I'm going to do next, this is kind of the last of the main 1/1000 scale models I wanted to do. Like I said, no, there's a 1/1000 scale Discovery Enterprise I can do. While, like I said, I like aesthetically how it looks. The ship is a bit too big for me. I think it's size-wise going to be about the size of my Excelsior model, 1/1000 scale. I know there's I currently have a 1400 scale Enterprise E model that I have a TenaControl board specifically for that one, but I haven't started on that. I started working on one of the parts and I screwed up painting it royally, so I got to get a replacement part for that. But I'm also thinking about doing sort of tutorial videos on like how I've sort of come to understand how to do these models myself, how I, and to be, I'll credit every YouTuber I encountered that have kind of, I've watched the videos along the way and I picked up, the main source of, how I started doing the lights in the first place, the fiber optics, light blocking. Like I want to take their knowledge and kind of distill it, to how I understand it. I'm going to stop rambling now and I will see you all later.